Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
All right, let's take it from the top again. Places. Action.
Well, let's see. We have on the bags, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know is on third.
That's what I want to find out.
I say who's on first, what's on second, I don't know is on third.
Are you the manager?
Yes.
You going to be the coach, too?
Yes.
And you know the fellow's name?
Well, I should.
Well, then who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who?
The guy playing
Who
first.
is on first?
I'm asking you who's on first.
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
That's it.
That's who?
Yes.
Join us for another voyage back in time on Classic Radio Rewind. From adventures to westerns, from comedy to sci-fi, this is your ticket to Theater of the Mind. Without any further ado, here's your host for Classic Radio Rewind, Barry Slinker.
Thank you, Dex Rowe, and welcome back to another episode of Classic Radio Rewind. I'm your host, Barry Slinker, and today we've got a lineup that's nothing short of remarkable. Later, we'll be diving into intense dramas from Big Town from 1942, followed by Crime Does Not Pay from 1949, and wrapping up with some hearty laughs from the Fibber McGee and Molly Show from 1943. But first, let's kick things off with a gripping tale from The Big Story. In this compelling narrative, William Miller of the Cleveland Press is approached by Joe Mantell's mother. She's desperate and determined, pleading with Miller to help prove her son's innocence. Joe has been accused of the tragic killing of an elderly couple during a robbery, a crime he insists he didn't commit. From November 26, 1947, this is The Big Story with Pillars of Society.
Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes present The Big Story.
You ready, Mama? Is the store locked?
Just closing the back door. You're finished,
Yep.
store?
Busy week, good week.
And the money?
In the valise, ready for deposit first thing in the morning.
Oh, a customer. It's too late.
No, it's not too late. Maybe he needs something. Wait, I'll...
Oh, it's two customers, Sal. Two men.
Two is better than one. Come in, gentlemen, come in. What can I...
You're an old guy, Pop. I wouldn't want to hurt you. But if I had to, I would.
We want...
The valise, Pop, the valise.
No, It's already... You're not rich.
Frank, maybe he doesn't understand polite talk. Now, give me that valise. Frank, talk to the man so he'll be sure and understand.
The Big Story. Here is America, its sound and its fury, its joy and its sorrow, as faithfully reported by the men and women of the great American newspapers. Cleveland, Ohio. From the pages of the Cleveland, Ohio Press, the moving story of justice and a guy named Joe. Tonight, to William Miller of the Cleveland, Ohio Press, goes the Pall Mall Award for The Big Story. Four notes that are alike, and one that is outstanding. And of America's leading cigarettes, one is outstanding. The longer, finer cigarette in the distinguished red package, Pall Mall.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you noticed how many of your friends have changed to Pall Mall? There's a reason. Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes.
Good to look at.
Good to feel.
Good to taste.
And good to smoke.
Yes, there's one cigarette that's really different, really outstanding. Pall Mall. For Pall Mall's greater length of traditionally fine, mellow tobaccos filters the smoke of this longer, finer cigarette. Gives you that smoothness, mildness, and satisfaction no other cigarette offers you.
Four notes that are alike, and one that is outstanding. And of America's leading cigarettes, one is outstanding.
Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes. Outstanding.
And they are mild.
Now the story as it actually happened. William Miller's story as he lived it. Cleveland, Ohio.
You sit at your desk, William Miller of the Cleveland Press, writing the story of a brutal holdup. A man and a woman, both in their 60s, owners of a small dry goods store on East 102nd Street, have been beaten and robbed. The sum taken, $2,000, represents 10 years' savings for their kind of people. Their attackers were kids, 119, 121, to whom money is the final goal, and to whom a storekeeper and his wife are just two people in the way. You write that bitter news story, and 2 months later you write with satisfaction that one of the robbers was sentenced to 15 years in jail. The other robber was never picked up, but you're happy with the one they got. You enter his name in the back of your mind under the category Louse. Joe Mantell. Louse. That done, you forget about him. Until 4 months later, the phone on your desk jogs you back into remembrance.
Miller speaking.
Receptionist, Mr. Miller. There's an old woman out here to see you.
Well, who is she? What does she want?
Wouldn't say.
Ask her name. I'm busy.
Yes, sir. What is your name? Thank you. Mrs. Mantell, Mr. Miller.
Mantell? I don't know any. Oh, Joe Mantell. She anything to do with him?
His mother, Mr. Miller.
What do you know? Yeah, send her in. I'd like to hear what she's got to say. Yeah, send her in.
You're very kind to see me, Mr. Miller.
You read the stories I wrote on your son, didn't you, Mrs. Mantell?
Yes, I did.
Well, then you know just how I feel. I'm only sorry you didn't get 25 years.
I'm not a proud woman, Mr. Miller. If, to get to the truth, I have to scrub floors or take a little insult. My mother doesn't mind that, Mr. Miller.
Now, look. Well, what do you got to say?
Joey didn't do it any more than I did.
The jury thought otherwise.
Joey wasn't there. He wasn't near the store that night.
You said that in court.
I know I did.
Well, what do you want anyhow? A man gets a trial, a fair trial, a jury of decent, honest people find him guilty. What more do you want?
Mr. Miller, I'm a reader of your paper 15 years. I like the way you write.
I know all that.
No,
Thank you
that's
very much.
not flattery. It's the truth. You remember the Sullivan boy about 8 years ago, Mr. Miller? He was found guilty by a jury of honest people, too, but you wrote about it, and you helped prove that he was innocent. And the Ginsburg girl, that was about 4 years ago.
Look, I studied your son's case. The only thing that makes me sore was that they didn't catch the other crook, and your son only got 15 years. Those people were in their 60s, Mrs. Mantell.
I'm 67, Mr. Miller. At 67, a woman don't lie. My boy was home in the garage fixing the car.
Why was he fixing a car in the evening?
Because when a boy wants to make a new start, he don't care if it's afternoon or evening.
Meaning what?
Joseph Mantell, my son, was a bad boy. And it's a mother saying that, Mr. Miller. When he was 16, he stole a car. At 18, he robbed a candy store. So, of course, any jury would say that at 19, he'd hold up another store and steal $2,000.
And beat up the storekeeper and his wife. I'd say the same thing.
You see, the night of the robbery, he was going away. I got $300 together, all I could spare. You see, my husband is dead. And we bought Joey a second-hand car, and he was going away. I was sitting on the steps that night, and he was in the garage fixing the car.
What's California like, Ma?
Oh, it's nice, Joey. A boy could, well, he could find himself there.
You don't know me, Ma. I got 2 strikes against me.
If he tries hard, he could find himself.
Ma, sometimes I think when they handed out luck, I was out for a beer.
Now, don't make smart jokes, Joey.
Okay. They must have seen you coming when they sold you this jalopy.
It'll get you to California, and that's all I want. Look, Joey, people in California never heard of you.
I know. No, it's not so easy. Cops heard of me, Ma. And other kinds of people, too. Don't kid yourself.
But you got nothing to be ashamed of. You did your time for the wrong things that you did. You'll go there and make a new start.
Yeah, sure. Who knows? Maybe I'll be the next Van Johnson. Joe Mantell in Home on a Range, playing at your...
What is it, Joey?
Okay, Mantell. Come along.
What's the matter? Officer, what's happened?
Didn't he tell you?
No.
You'll find out. Let's go. The sergeant is waiting for you, Mantell. And the judge and the jury, and I think there'll be a nice, comfortable cell, too. Now, come on.
That's the God's truth, Mr. Miller. He was going away to turn over a new leaf, too.
Okay, Mrs. Mantell, I heard you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I got a lot of work to do. 3 witnesses saw him.
Maybe Joey was right. 2 strikes against you, he said. Chances are you strike out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Take that door out, will you, Mrs. Mantell? I'm not a charitable institution, and I'm not a dope either.
And that's all. You close your mind to it. Happens every day. Every crook with a mother is innocent. You go back to the real world of being an honest reporter, and then something happens, and you realize that you haven't shaken the Mantell case from your mind because...
You write this story, Smitty?
Yeah, why?
About the 2 guys that held up the gas station?
Told you I did. Something the matter?
Oh, no, nothing. Just... What, did you see the crooks?
Sure, I saw them. Hey, what's eating you?
Just this. The 2 criminals, Bud and Frank Enright, 19 and 21, in addition to robbing the attendant, beat him cruelly as well. The injuries may prove fatal because the attendant was a man well in his 60s.
So?
Well, nothing. Just reminds me of another case. I just wonder if... Nah, 3 witnesses couldn't be wrong. The jury couldn't be that wrong. Nah. Or could they? Smitty, what jail are those 2 crooks in? Sergeant, can I see this Bud Enright?
Sure. It's a free country. What's the point, Miller?
Well, I just I want to make sure I didn't insult an old lady.
Huh? I don't know what you're talking about, but go ahead. Go as far as you like. Only leave him in the cooler, will you?
You look like him. You know that, don't you?
Like who?
Like Joe Mantell.
Who's he?
The boy who was sent up for beating and robbing a couple who ran a dry goods store on East 102nd Street 6 months ago.
So what? I look like him.
Did you do that job?
Don't be stupid.
Now, look, Bud, you're in a bad way. You may get life. You know that, don't you?
Look, get out of here. I got a right to be alone.
You and your brother stuck up that couple, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, we stuck him up and tipped the cops to pick up this Mantell.
Now, what do you got to lose? Tell the truth. Maybe an innocent kid is up for 15 years for what you did.
My heart's bleeding. Now get out of here and leave me alone. What kind of jail is this, anyhow? Anybody can come in here and say anything he wants. Leave me alone.
Mr. Jenkins, you identified this man as the robber of the dry goods store.
Look, young man, I testified to that effect in court. I don't see why...
And this is the man, isn't it? This is his picture?
That's right. Now, if you don't mind,
This is not Joe Mantell.
What?
That's right. This is Bud Enright, not Joe Mantell.
But
Then you're not sure it was Mantell who held up that store. It might have been this man.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. That's all I wanted to know. Is this the man, Mrs. Smothers?
This one? Oh, it certainly is. I'd know his face anywhere. He came in our store just...
Well, this is not the man your testimony convicted, Mrs. Smothers. This is another man.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness, that's terrible. You're sure?
I told you I didn't do it, Miller. When are you going to leave me alone?
Enright, I've got affidavits from 3 witnesses saying you were the man, not Mantell. From the storekeepers, too. Now, why don't you stop it? You're going to get life anyhow. Play ball, maybe something can be done.
I don't want any part of it.
Oh, look, maybe it's a stupid thing to say, Enright, but how about a little thing like your conscience? How about a little thing like that fact that this kid's mother is sick to death because... Enright, I swear I'm going to haunt you till you tell me the truth. I'm going to...
All right. All right, shut up.
I got a statement right here. I'll read it. And read it carefully.
Okay, let me see it.
Well, there it is, Commissioner. The works. Signed confession by Enright, affidavits of error by the witnesses, and now all you have to do is see the governor.
Suppose we go slow, Miller.
What do you mean slow? Everything's right here in front of you, Commissioner.
Sure. What is the confession of a life termer worth? What did you offer him to sign it? Sympathetic treatment in your paper? No. Feed a little sentiment to most crooks, they'll oblige you. What have they got to lose? That confession isn't worth the paper it's written on.
What about the affidavits of the witnesses? What about Mrs. Smothers, who owned the store?
What? That they made a mistake? That they said Enright was Mantell? I could get them to say Mantell was Enright, or maybe somebody else. Maybe instead of making one mistake, they're making two mistakes. What proof have you got? Real proof. Absolute proof that would warrant our reversing a jury.
But this man is innocent, Commissioner.
I know. An innocent man is in prison. Makes a great story. But how does this one strike you? A guilty man is pardoned. How do you like that story?
Mantell didn't do it. He was fixing his car that night. He was going to California.
A jury thought otherwise. 12 honest men and women, as honest as you or I. They thought otherwise. You think you've got enough to throw that decision away?
Well, look, in the Sullivan case, in the Ginsburg case...
Oh, sure. You batted 1,000 there. Only this time you might be batting 0. Nothing you've shown me would make the governor give Mantell a pardon. Nothing. I want proof, Miller, proof. Maybe this will sound high-handed to you, but it happens to be my philosophy. The philosophy of the courts of this country. A jury has the last word. Trial by jury is the pillar of decency and law. You don't throw that over for a whim or an idea, or even because a smart reporter comes in and presents you with something that indicates maybe, just maybe, something is wrong. Think that over, Miller. At any time you want to speak to me again, come right in. I'm honest, but I'm hard-headed. You'll be the same.
We'll be back in just a moment with tonight's big story, but first a word from Cy Harris.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you noticed how many of your friends have changed to Pell Mell? There's a reason. Pell Mell famous cigarettes.
Good to look at.
Good to feel.
Good to taste.
And good to smoke.
Yes, there's one cigarette that's really different. Really outstanding. Pell Mell.
When you pick up a Pell Mell, you can see the difference, you can feel the difference. And when you smoke a Pell Mell, you can taste the difference.
For Pell Mell's greater length of traditionally fine, mellow tobaccos filters the smoke of this longer, finer cigarette. Gives you that smoothness, mildness, and satisfaction no other cigarette offers you. Four notes that are alike, and one that is outstanding. And of America's leading cigarettes, one is outstanding. The longer, finer cigarette in the distinguished red package. Pell Mell famous cigarettes. Outstanding.
And they are mild. Now, back to your narrator, Bob Sloan, and the big story of William Miller as he lived it and wrote it.
You walk out of the commissioner's office, slowly weighing his words, because you're just a reporter, Bill Miller, a reporter for the Cleveland Press. You think over what he said, that courts and trial by jury are the pillars of our society. And you know he has a point, a big point. And so, as you move ahead now, you look for proof. Proof that'll be important enough to reverse a decision by a jury of 12 men and women, tried and true. Your first step is taken with a specialist, Dr. Thompson, an expert with a lie detector. You two sit down with Joe Mantell, and as the doctor gives him a test for truth, you can hear his heartbeat.
Now, just relax, Mr. Mantell, if you please, and answer the questions I'll ask you.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Are you innocent?
Yes, sir, Doctor, I am.
Where were you on the night of the robbery?
Fixing my car.
What kind of car was it?
A Chevy. Convertible.
How many times were you convicted before?
Twice. Both times for robbery.
But this time you're innocent.
Yes, sir, I'm innocent. I never...
Very well. Mrs. Smothers, the storekeeper, said you hit her husband on the head.
That's a lie. I never did. I wouldn't hit a man old enough to be my father.
All right, Mr. Mantell. That'll do. That'll do very nicely.
Now, just sit still, Enright. This is a lie detector.
I signed your statement, didn't I? What do you got to bother me with all this for?
Just answer the questions, and nothing's going to happen to you.
All right, Mr. Miller, I'm ready. Now, Mr. Enright, describe what happened when you went into the store.
I walked in, me and my brother. They wouldn't hand over the money, so I took it. They had it in a little valise.
And then you hit him.
Frank hit him. We wanted to be sure they wouldn't call the cops.
And then you walked out?
Yeah, we put out the lights and then walked out.
How much money was in the valise?
$2,000. Ain't that enough?
Your brother says you hit him.
And he's a liar. A dirty liar.
All right, Mr. Enright. Fine. Thank you.
Now, do me a favor, Miller. Get that Mantell punk out of jail and leave me alone.
I'll try, Bud. I'll try.
The tests, Commissioner, establish, in my judgment, the innocence of Joseph Mantell and demonstrate that Bud Enright was telling the truth when he admitted the robbery.
I see.
Well, what do you say, Commissioner?
Lie detectors are funny things. Tell me, Doctor, how do you explain this chart? The wild beatings and vibrations during Mantell's testimony, if he was telling the truth.
Well, he's young and excitable. And anyone would have such reactions.
Then they're not conclusive. He might have had the same reactions if he were lying.
Well...
Commissioner Enright's chart shows that he wasn't lying.
Now, to me, it doesn't.
Well, why doesn't it?
Because... Check me on this, Doctor. The lie detector breaks down when it comes to hardened criminals. I mean a man with a record who, over a period of years, has built himself up to lie evenly. Such a man could fool a lie detector, right?
Well, there would be some difficulty in such a case.
Read Enright's record, Miller. 7 major crimes in 6 years. Everything from smuggling to assault to arson to robbery. Such a man is constitutionally unable to distinguish between right and wrong.
But for heaven's sake, Commissioner...
I still see a jury of 12 people deliberating in a closed room, settling the fate of a man. I don't see this kind of half evidence changing what went on in that room.
Well, what do you want?
I want a reason. A better reason than you've given me for reversing a jury.
You write articles in your paper, Bill Miller. Articles pointing out the validity of your case. You call upon outstanding citizens to rally around the innocence of Joe Mantell. You bring support to your case in the person of the most respectable citizens of Cleveland. And then you go to see the commissioner once more.
No, I won't change my mind.
Well, Now, look, this has gone beyond the stage of reasonable doubt. Here are the names of 200 of the most prominent citizens of Cleveland.
I was just as impressed with the names of the witnesses and the storekeeper's wife. Size doesn't change this, and the importance of the people who signed doesn't change it. They didn't sit on that jury. They didn't hear all the evidence.
Well, suppose I got the jurors themselves. Would that change your mind?
How could you do that? That jury was impaneled over a year ago. A lot of those people are, who knows, all over the state, maybe some out of the state. How could you get them?
Well, suppose I did. What would you say then?
You really believe in this, don't you?
Just as much as you believe in the sanctity of the courts.
If you'll get the jury, Miller, I'll get you some action from the governor.
Now you've said something, Bill Miller. You're going to get the jury to reverse themselves. And in saying it, you've said a mouthful. Because just as the commissioner thought, half the jurors can't be located easily. Some have moved to other cities, some to other states. But you go after them. You reach them wherever they are and present the testimony of the witnesses. You show them the photos. You bring in the lie detector tests. And finally, after a year of hard work, you've got 11 jurors agreeing that Joe Mantell should be pardoned. But 11 isn't 12. And the 12th juror, Mrs. Anna Ryder, can't be found anywhere. And then your phone rings.
Miller speaking.
Mr. Miller, this is Mrs. Mantell.
Oh, hello, Mrs. Mantell. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. And I haven't had a chance yet to tell you how much I appreciate all that you've done.
That's all right, Mrs. Mantell. I wish I... Well, I haven't been able to finish what I started.
Yes, I know. Mrs. Ryder, the 12th juror.
Yeah, we can't find her anywhere.
But that's why I called you. I found her.
We've done every... You found her? Well, where?
Well, that's just it, Mr. Miller. She's very sick, and she's in the hospital.
Well, could we see her?
Well, I don't know. The doctor says her condition is very serious.
Well, give me the name of the hospital. Maybe we can do it, Mrs. Mantell. Maybe we can. And that's the story, Mrs. Ryder.
Thank you for coming. You see, I'm dying, Mr. Miller.
Oh, no, you're not.
Oh, yes, I know. But I thank you for coming. Always since I saw your first articles in the paper months ago, always there was a little cloud of doubt in my mind. And if I died with such a thing on my conscience...
No, you mustn't talk.
No, you see, his mother. This innocent boy's mother, she might have been me. No, Mr. Miller, I thank you for coming. You have a paper for me to sign? Give me the paper and bless you. Bless you for coming.
I'm so glad you came, Mr. Miller. Joey is so happy since he was pardoned by the governor.
Well, I'm glad, too, Mrs. Mantell. It's a very nice party.
Yes, it's a coming home party and a going away party, too. Did you have some turkey?
Yes, thank you, I did. What do you mean, going away?
You haven't seen Joey, have you?
No, I was beginning to wonder where...
Well, he's out in the back in the garage, fixing up the car. He said he don't want a party. He just wants to go away. He's changed, Mr. Miller, thanks to you. No chip on his shoulder now. No 2 strikes against him. Go out, Mr. Miller. Shake his hand and wish him luck. Joey'd like that better than anything in the world.
In just a moment, we'll read you a telegram from William Miller of the Cleveland Press with the final outcome of tonight's big story. The cigarette that's really different. The longer, finer cigarette that's really outstanding. Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes. Good to look at.
Good to feel.
Good to taste.
And good to smoke.
Yes, Pall Malls are good to look at, good to feel, good to taste, and good to smoke. Four notes that are alike, and one that is outstanding. And of America's leading cigarettes, one is outstanding. The longer, finer cigarette in the distinguished red package, Pall Mall. Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes. Outstanding.
And they are mild.
Now we read you that telegram from William Miller of the Cleveland, Ohio Press.
Couldn't write story of my meeting that day with Mantell. A little too personal, a little too private. But could tell that by way he said hi, useful life had been reclaimed. Feeling was justified when 2 years later received postcard from Mantell in California. He was happy, had a good job, doing well. Many thanks for tonight's Pall Mall Award.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The makers of Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes are proud to have named you the winner of the Pall Mall $500 award for notable service in the field of journalism.
Listen again next week, same time, same station, when Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes will present another big story. A big story from the front pages of the Indianapolis Star. Byline, Robert Early. A big story about racing cars, reckless men, and a driver who gambled and lost.
The Big Story is produced by Bernard J. Proctor with music by Vladimir Zelinsky. Tonight's program was written by Arnold Pearl. Your narrator was Bob Sloan, and Arnold Moss played the part of William Miller. In order to protect the names of people actually involved in tonight's authentic Big Story, the names of all characters in the dramatization were changed, with the exception of the reporter, Mr. Miller. This is Ernest Chappell speaking for the makers of Pall Mall Famous Cigarettes.
This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.
That was Pillars of Society from The Big Story, aired originally on November 26, 1947. Now let's shift gears to our next intriguing tale. Up next is Big Town with the episode Adventures in Geneva, which first graced the airwaves on June 18, 1942. Set against the tumultuous backdrop of World War II, this story plunges us into a world rife with tension and moral complexity. A Nazi official has been assassinated, and in horrifying retribution, a French family faces devastating consequences. Let's delve into Adventures in Geneva from Big Town and witness how these events unfold. Right here on Classic Radio Rewind.
Extra, extra, get your illustrated press. Read all about the new Rinso. It's anti-sneeze and it washes clothes whiter. Extra, extra, read all about Rinso.
The new anti-sneeze Rinso presents Big Town, starring Edward G. Robinson with Ona Munson. Good evening, everybody. This is Ken Niles. A lady I know wants to revive the primitive custom of having everybody eat from one big kettle. Of course, she's only kidding. Her real peeve is washing dishes. But I pointed out to her that you needn't feel that way if you let new anti-sneeze Rinso help you with the dishes. Rinso's tops for chasing grease. It gives your dishes a beautiful, clean sparkle. It doesn't get your hands all rough and red either. And remember, it costs less than a cent a day to do your dishes the Rinso way. So get the new anti-sneeze Rinso tomorrow. And now, Big Town. The makers of Rinso present Big Town, starring Edward G. Robinson as Steve Wilson, managing editor of the Illustrated Press, with Ona Munson as Lorelei Kilborn, girl reporter. Steve and Lorelei have turned war correspondents, and now their temporary headquarters are in Geneva, Switzerland, a city close to the border of unoccupied France. Let Steve's news dispatch carry on with the story.
Begins in France, at a point not far from the Swiss border. An armored car loaded with German officials is raging along the highway that leads to Lyon. On the rear seat, flanked by bodyguards, rides Karl Wahlberg, chief of the Nazi stormtroopers, known to French patriots as the Monster, a man responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent victims, a scourge sent from Berlin to help destroy a nation. Waiting in ambush at the side of the highway are three men. They hear the car coming and get ready. One of them flings a hand grenade which hits the road squarely in front of the Germans. As the automobile swerves and crashes into a ditch, one of the attackers aims an automatic at Carl Wahlberg and empties its magazine into his body. The monster is dead.
Yeah, who are those people standing in the field?
The Daranac family. All 6 of them. The girl who sings is Yvonne, their youngest.
What are those German soldiers going to do?
Shoot the Daranacs. What else? They're hostages. The monster was killed on the road near here.
The Dardanelles didn't kill him?
No, they didn't kill him. But German bloodlust must be satisfied. This is only the beginning. Yvonne started singing the Marseillaise as the soldiers lined them up in the field. Pauvre petite. Turn your head away. Do not look.
And now to Steve and Lorelei at Steve's suite at the Grand Hotel in Geneva, Switzerland, just across the line. Steve is reading from a Swiss newspaper.
Executions are anticipated in France today as the roundup of hostages continues in retaliation for the shooting of the Nazi stormtrooper, Chief Karl Wahlberg. German authorities have taken over control of the Haute-Savoie department of the unoccupied France, and they threaten the shooting of all Frenchmen, over 15 who failed to report at the Gestapo within 2 days.
Beasts.
It is reported that 3 Frenchmen were implicated in the killing of Wahlberg. 2 of these men were immediately shot down by the occupants of a police car following that of the stormtrooper chief. The other man, as yet unidentified, escaped from the scene. It's all right, Lorelei. I'll get it. Hello?
Steve Wilson?
Speaking?
This is Johnny O'Neill.
O'Neill? Of the Big Town Chronicle?
That's right.
Lorelei, it's O'Neill of the Chronicle. Well,
Really?
Johnny. Well, it's great to hear a voice from the old hometown. Where are you stopping?
I'm at the Palace. Steve, I've got hold of the biggest news beat that ever cracked a front page.
What are you trying to do, Johnny? Burn me up with envy?
No, it isn't that, Steve. I need your help.
My help? Well, you seem to forget we're rivals in this game. Why should I help you scoop my own newspaper?
This is something more than a scoop. This is something we've got to tell the whole world.
Well, go ahead and tell it.
No, you don't get me. The Nazi secret police would give their eye teeth to keep this story under cover. They found out that I've got the facts, and they'll do anything to shut me up. Now, the point is, I've got my story, but I can't get it out. The censors won't take it. I need your code to cable it to America.
Look, what are you trying to do? Pull a fast one on me? Now, listen, Johnny, I know you of old.
Steve, I'm on the level this time.
Well, if you use my code, your story will have to go through the Illustrated Press.
All I ask is to get it out. I know you'll give the Chronicle an even break.
Well, all right, give me an idea. What is your story? What have you got?
I know who killed the stormtrooper chief, Karl Wahlberg. I know where the man's hiding out. Sorry, I've got to cut this short. Somebody at the door. Steve, get over here as quick as you can.
Okay, Johnny, we'll be there. It's strange that Johnny didn't answer his phone when the hotel clerk called his room.
Well, he may have stepped out for a moment.
Now, let me see. The clerk said his room was right near the elevator. Oh, yes, here it is, 327. Hey, Johnny, you in there? Open up. It's Stephen Lorelei.
Well, evidently he did step out.
Well, if he needs help so badly, why didn't he wait till we got here? Well, what do you know about that?
Well,
The door wasn't locked at all. Hey, Johnny, where are you?
good heavens. This room looks as if a whirlwind had struck it. Why, his things are thrown everywhere. He must have ducked out in a hurry.
Well, Johnny never did this. This room has been searched by somebody who had to work fast. I wonder if... Wait a minute. Even the bathroom has been torn to pieces. What the devil happened to that boy?
Steve!
What's the matter, Lorelei?
Oh, look there. Behind the divan.
Good Lord. Johnny. Johnny.
Hadn't we better call the office and have them send up a doctor?
Well, the only thing a doctor can do now is to write a death certificate. Just before Johnny hung up the phone, he said there was someone at the door. That someone must have stepped in here and shot him without giving him a chance.
Why wasn't the shot heard?
I don't know. Perhaps the silencer was used. Look, they've been through all his pockets, emptied his clothes of everything.
There's his gun lying there.
Yes. Colt automatic. Well, it could have been put there to make it look like suicide.
Oh, be careful. Don't put your fingerprints on it.
I won't. I'll use a handkerchief. No, this gun hasn't been fired. There's one cartridge in the firing chamber and no cartridges in the magazine. Hold on. There is something in the magazine. A piece of paper stuffed into the bottom of it. Now, what do you suppose?
Let's see. Why, Steve, it's a message to you.
Steve, if anything happens to me, trust Anne Carryville. She knows where Wahlberg's killer is hidden, Johnny.
Trust Anne Carryville.
Now, Johnny said the Nazi secret police would give their eye teeth to keep the story undercover. Now, why? Everybody knows the story of the shooting of Wahlberg.
Yes, but only 2 of his attackers were killed. The third man got away. Nobody knows where he is. That's what the Nazis were trying to get from Johnny.
Yes, but if that was all they wanted, why should they kill him? You see what I mean? Johnny must have had an inside angle on this story. That's what he meant when he said it was the biggest news beat that ever cracked the front page. Well, I thought I heard somebody moving in this closet.
A girl.
Come out, mademoiselle. How long have you been hiding in there?
Ever since you first tried the door to this room.
Did you shoot O'Neill?
Oh, no, monsieur, no. I was working with him, helping him. I would have done anything in the world for him. It was I who found him first, just before you got here.
Where did you come from? Who are you?
I work in the hotel. I'm typist in the manager's office. My name is Anne Carryville.
What?
So, coincidence rears its ugly head.
Well, of course you heard me reading Johnny's message saying I should trust Anne Carryville. Using that name isn't clever, mademoiselle.
I'm not trying to be clever. I do work here. The manager, the clerk. Anybody will tell you.
What were you doing, spying on Johnny?
Oh, no, monsieur.
Who got you the job here, the Nazi Gestapo?
No, I'm French. I hate the Nazis.
Then why did you hide when you heard us coming in?
Oh, can't you see? I just found Johnny lying there dead. I've been helping him, giving him information for his big town newspaper. Oh, Johnny told me about you. You will see, I know your names. You're Steve Wilson. And this lady is Lorelei Kilburn.
That's no trick, knowing who we are.
But what I say is true. You see, I come from a little French village just across the border. It is near that village that Karl Wahlberg was killed. It was I who told Johnny about the men who shot him and escaped.
You mean you know where that man is hidden?
Of course I do. I can take you to him.
Well, why should we go there? The story of Wahlberg's death has already been told.
Oh, no, Monsieur Wilson. Not the real story. Johnny had that. And I am going to give it to you.
Steve, look.
I am Inspector McGee of the Genevieve Police. Simon, you remain here at the door. No one is to leave without my permission.
Yes, Inspector.
Kimball, you search this room. I want every scrap of evidence.
Oui, mon Inspector.
Well, how do you do, Inspector? My name's Steve Wilson, and this is...
I know your names. Americans are not so common in Geneva that we cannot keep track of them.
Well, I was just about to report to the police that there's been a murder committed here. Johnny O'Neill was a good friend of mine.
Your report would come a little late, Monsieur Wilson. We know what has happened here.
Yes, but I told you Johnny O'Neill was my friend. You don't think we had anything to do with this?
What I think doesn't matter, monsieur. You are all under arrest. Charged with suspicion of murder.
Hey, look here, Inspector. I thought you said you were taking us in this car to be questioned by the police.
We are.
Then why are you leaving the city?
They're driving toward the French border, Monsieur Wilson.
The lady is right. You are to be questioned by the police. The secret police of the Third Reich at our headquarters in France.
Well, then you're not a Swiss police officer.
No, Wilson. I am Colonel Juno Heitzing of the German Gestapo. These men are my aides, Lieutenant Schufeld and Heimwasser.
Oh, so you're the man who killed Johnny O'Neill?
Yes. We've been watching him for some time. There were 3 dictaphones hidden in O'Neill's room, so we missed very little.
But you can't take us over the border into France.
No? What makes you think so?
Well, all we have to do is to tell the Swiss border guards who we are, and you'll be turned back.
We have passports for every occupant of this car.
Yes, forged, of course.
They'll pass inspection. If you open your mouth when we reach the border, you'll be instantly shot, and we'll make our escape as best we can. We want you alive, but if that is impossible, we prefer to have you dead.
We are nearing the border now.
Well, what is your decision, Wilson?
Well, we'll be quiet. What else can we do? Tell the border guards anything you like.
This is Ken Niles again. We'll get back to Big Town in just a moment, but first... Alley-oop, here they come.
To get clothes lily white with ease, be sure to get new Rinso. You'll fly through wash day like a breeze if you get Rinso.
Yes, folks, it's the Rinso sisters, Lily White and Auntie Sneeze. Well, what have you girls been up to?
Oh, boy, did we throw a monkey wrench into the gears. We certainly wrecked things.
Hey, now, wait a minute. This calls for an explanation.
Well, you see, Ken, we found a woman who was a regular slave, and all because of an old fogey soap.
Might as well have been a slave the way she rubbed, scrubbed, and boiled on wash day. Sneezed her head off, too.
So we introduced her to Rinso. With those quick-acting Rinso suds, her wash came dazzling clean, with as little as a 10-minute soaking.
A few quick rubs on extra soiled places, and they were ready to rinse.
Sure, for Rinso has 2 special ingredients to prevent white things from turning gray or yellow.
And no pesky wash day hay fever with Rinso, for Rinso's Auntie Sneeze. So, naturally, the lady chucked out her lazy old-fashioned soap and switched to Rinso for good.
Did you hear that, ladies? Why don't you switch to the new Auntie Sneeze Rinso tomorrow? Remember...
For Rinso's Auntie Sneeze, you know, it saves you wash day sorrow. You spell it R-I-N-S-O. Get some tomorrow.
Please stay tuned in at the end of this program for a red-hot preview of next week's dramatic show. And now, back to our story. We left Steve, Lorelei, and Anne Caravel, the French girl, in the car of Captain Heitzing of the German Gestapo as they arrived at a border station between Switzerland and unoccupied France. Heitzing's 2 aides, Schufelt and Heimwasser, are in the front seat of the car. Heitzing, Steve, Lorelei, and Anne in the rear seat. The Swiss border guards have examined the forged passports. As our scene opens, one of them is returning the papers to Heitzing.
Your passports are in order, monsieur. You may proceed.
Bien, merci. Drive on, Marius.
One moment, please. Wait. Shut off your motor. Here's Captain Plutarch in command of the station.
Drop the barrier. Something is wrong, Captain?
Very wrong. This man and this lady seated here with you, their passports give the names of Alexandre Rocher and Madeleine Leland.
But of course.
Is your name Rocher, monsieur?
Oui, Alexander Rochard.
Yesterday, when you interviewed me here for your newspaper, your name was Steve Wilson, and this lady was Lorelei Kilburn. You gave me some fine Havana cigars and told me very funny American stories. What have you to say to that?
Well, je suis désolé, monsieur.
Oh, do not try to trick me with your miserable French. Sentries, cover these people with your rifle.
We won't cover them.
Come on, get out of that gun, Monsieur Wilson.
You better take your gun out of my ribs, Colonel Heitzing.
What is this, a gun?
Yes.
Here.
Take it, Captain.
You swine!
That's why the colonel had his arm around my back. Watch those 2 men in the front seat. These are not French citizens. They're Gestapo agents trying to kidnap us.
So?
You see, Heitzing, a careful newspaper man makes friends wherever he may need them. That's why I was willing to let you try this time.
So they were kidnapping you?
It's not only that, Captain Plutarch. They were going to steal our car.
This is not your car.
Of course, they'll lie about it, Captain. We're taking a trip into unoccupied France, and we ask you to let us take our car and continue with it.
Oh, by all means, Monsieur Wilson. This is an outrage!
Well, these Nazis howl when they're caught. Now, hold them, Captain, and we'll appear against them when we come back. And now, with your permission, we'll drive on.
But of course. Raise the barrier.
We won't cover down.
Thank you, Captain. You're a scholar and a gentleman.
Be careful. The stairway is very old, and the steps are almost worn away.
Yes, and they're slippery, too.
The water from springs seeps through the walls.
Where are we now, Anne?
Oh, we are still beneath the old abbey.
Well, does this tunnel lead us to where the man who shot Karl Wahlberg is hidden?
Oui, Monsieur Wilson.
Say, Cardinal Richelieu built here.
So I've been told. These tunnels and the underground chambers make good meeting places for Frenchmen who still believe in a free France.
Well, tell me again, what's the name of the man who killed Wahlberg?
He calls himself Gardet. Felix Gardet. This is the door to the room where our people are waiting for us. Gardet is with them. I told them what you wanted them to do.
All right, Anne. I'll question Gardette, and if his story is half as sensational as you seem to think it is, we'll try to get it out to the world.
Wait.
Gardette, was it you who fired the shots that killed Wahlberg?
Yes, monsieur.
How many others were in the plot besides yourself?
2 others. The men who were killed by the officers in the second police car.
Well, didn't you expect that second car to come along?
No, it came suddenly out of a side road.
And those officers tried to get you also?
Yes, but I escaped. These people have been hiding me.
Yes, but you don't belong to their organization.
No.
You see, they know nothing about you.
Nothing, monsieur.
Do you work for the Free French?
I work only for myself, for France against the Hun. It was my own idea to kill Wahlberg.
Why?
You know what we called him, the monster. You know what he's done to us. Isn't that reason enough?
An excellent reason if you were telling the truth. But I doubt that very much.
What do you mean? Why should I lie to those who have saved
Well,
me?
hundreds of French hostages are being shot because of what you've done. There's only one way to stop that, to turn you over to the Gestapo.
You wouldn't do that. You couldn't.
I couldn't, no. This council must decide what to do with you.
We have decided, Monsieur Wilson.
The Germans have executed 160 of our people. 200 more are held as hostages.
What is this man's life compared to those 200?
We have voted to give him up to the Nazis.
You can't do that. You wouldn't dare.
Who wouldn't dare?
Because
Why?
they know they'd be shot for having hidden me.
Well, how could they be unless you gave their names to the Germans?
Do you think I'd hold back those names if my own life were threatened? What would you expect me to do?
That's what your Nazi mind prompts you to do, betray them. You're no Frenchman, you're a stormtrooper yourself.
You're insane.
You've been under suspicion from the moment you came to these people begging for help. I told them to say they'd surrender you to the Nazis, hoping that might show you up in your true colors, and it did. The killing of Wahlberg was ordered by a member of his own gang. And you were one of the gunmen who were hired to do it. You said you didn't expect that second police car. You didn't expect to be double-crossed, did you? Well, those were the boys who were ordered to shut your mouth with bullets the minute your job was done. That's true, isn't it? Come on, out with it. There's only one way to save yourself now.
Yes, it's true, but how do you mean I can save myself?
Well, we'll try to get you over the border to Switzerland. There you'll have to make a verbal confession, which will be recorded on wax. We'll give the story to the American newspapers, and the record you make will be broadcast from every free station in Europe.
Germany will deny
it. Of course
it.
she'll deny it. She denies everything. But she'll no longer have an excuse to shoot innocent hostages for the killing of Wahlberg. Even Germany can see the writing on the wall.
Is this a radio station, Anne? I mean, do you broadcast from this inn here in Switzerland?
Oh, no. Our stations are not legal, not even in Switzerland.
And you see, Lorelei, they're never in one place. Many of them are on trucks or on riverboats that make a broadcast from some hidden spot and then move quickly before they can be traced.
Well, what about the people who speak over the radio?
Oh, we always broadcast by transcription.
Oh, so that's how it is. Your speakers make a record, then you deliver the record to your secret radio station.
Your best confession.
You mean Herman Menzel's confession. That's his real name. They're giving Wahlberg a military funeral in Berlin today. Hitler's delivering the eulogy over the body of his latest martyr. Well, I want the Menzel confession to go on the air just as Hitler signs off. I'll go get Menzel now.
We are ready to make the transcription record, Monsieur Wilson.
Go ahead, Menzel. Speak right into this microphone. Now, don't be afraid. Can't hurt you.
Must I stand close to the microphone?
Right where you are will do. Oh, there's the signal. Go on, begin.
My name is Herman Menzel. I was formerly a member of the Nazi stormtroopers stationed in Paris. One day, Colonel Udo Heitzing of the Gestapo called me to his office and offered me a promotion to a captaincy and the sum of 10,000 marks if I would undertake and successfully carry out the shooting.
Steve, look out!
It's Colonel Heitzing.
Yes, Heitzing. Did you think I would let you put that confession on the air, Wilson?
Well, so you shot Menzel the same way you shot Johnny O'Neill.
Come in, Schildfield, and close the door. Heimwasser, you wait outside. Keep everybody out of here until we've finished with these people.
Lorelei, get Menzel some water.
Stay where you are, Miss Kilburn. You'll get him nothing. He let a traitor die without any help.
Told you they would find me, Wilson.
They never give up.
Don't worry, they'll give up sooner than you think.
Don't be so sure of that. Well, Menzel, you made a fine mess of things, didn't you?
You lied to me. You used me to kill the man you hated.
The man
whose place you wanted.
The man whose place I got. The Führer has appointed me chief of the stormtroopers. I succeeded our late beloved chief, Karl Wahlberg. The announcement will soon be made just after his funeral in Berlin this afternoon.
You tried to kill me so I would not talk. Just as you killed the others.
We can afford to spend many lives. You will be no loss to us.
Hitler was right when he wrote in his book that we Germans are sheep. We are blind, stupid sheep, following the black goat to the slaughter pens. Hitler, the black goat who leads us to destruction, who will try...
Inhuman beast.
Well, that's the end of Menzel. Now we'll deal with you, Wilson, and your two lady friends.
And you don't deny that Wahlberg was killed by your orders?
Yes, I ordered his death, and my orders came from higher up. Why should I deny it? You won't live long enough to quote me. You haven't had a chance to send the story to your American newspapers, and Menzel's confession was stopped by a bullet. Any statement you make will be stopped the same way.
What are you going to do?
Can't you guess? I'm sorry, ladies, but if you will consort with a troublemaker like Wilson, you must expect the same medicine.
Menzel's confession was stopped. Yes, but there's nothing you can do now to stop your confession from being heard by millions.
My confession? What are you talking about?
Menzel was speaking into that microphone. His voice was being recorded on wax in the next room. Nobody turned off the apparatus. The recording went right on. Everything you've said since you came through that door, every word spoken in this room has been recorded by electrical transcription. Right now, the record is on its way to be broadcast by the nearest mobile radio station. If you were half as clever as you think you are, you would have found that out for yourself.
In the next room, huh? Well, we'll see about that.
Himmel, get back, you Nazi swine. Put your hands up.
Why don't we finish him and be done with it now?
You see? You see, Colonel Heitzing, the next room was crowded with our friends, workers in the organization that will broadcast your confession to the world. I think you'll find the guard you left outside the other door is also in trouble.
So. Well, what are you going to do with me?
Well, we're going to turn you over to the Swiss police on a double charge of murder.
They won't dare hold me.
Oh, I think they will. And even if you could escape them, what would you do then? Go back to Berlin? After Hitler hears that broadcast, he'll give you the same dose you gave Wahlberg. You're in the tough spot, Heitzing. I doubt if even the devil wants you.
Be sure to stay tuned in. In 30 seconds, an exciting preview of next week's dramatic adventure. Ladies, why not make this a Be Kind to Your Washer week? Now, first thing you do is to get the new anti-sneeze Rinso, and believe me, you've got something. Why, with those peppy, long-lasting Rinso suds in your machine, clothes come fresh and gay as wildflowers with as little as a 5-minute run. And that helps keep your clothes in good condition and saves wear and tear on a machine that's got to last for the duration. And be sure to have your machine checked occasionally by a reliable dealer. And get new anti-sneeze Rinso before next wash day. And now the preview of a dramatic episode from next week's show of Thrills and Chills. The scene is the North African desert in Libya. En route to Cairo, Egypt, where their plane is forced down and destroyed, Steve, Lorelei, and others of their party take shelter close to the sloping sides of a sand dune. Night in the desert. The low moan of a hot wind.
Colonel Stout.
Yes, Wilson?
Have you any idea where we are?
I should say somewhere south of Bir Hachheim. When daylight comes, we'll strike northeast.
Well, wouldn't that bring us out near Tobruk?
Nearer Ein El Ghazala.
It will if we can walk that far.
Well, thank heaven we have food and water to last a couple of days.
The trouble is, our path will lie across the battleground where General Rommel's Nazi tanks are fighting the British. If we do stumble on a detachment, chances are it'll be the Nazis.
Well, I prefer the desert.
So do I.
Good heavens.
What's the matter?
Hear that wind?
Well, I can feel it. It's like a blast from a furnace.
That's the Hamzi, the Arabic name for the hot wind that brings the sandstorms. The storm will be on us in a second. We've got to find better shelter than this.
Yes, but there isn't any other shelter here.
You're right. We've got to dig in. Everybody burrow into the sand and cover your faces.
Does it always come as quickly as this?
Yes, and with hardly any warning. Keep your face hidden or it'll blind you. The wind will choke you to death. Stay close to me, Lorelei.
For the complete story of next week's exciting drama, tune in the same station at the same time. Friends, all of us are profoundly grateful to the USO, that wonderful organization that goes along wherever our fighting forces are sent to help make off-duty hours more pleasant for our boys in the Army and the Navy and the Marines. The USO serves our armed forces on maneuvers, in transit, on leave, and in camp. Gives them a homey place to rest and find recreation, or to sit and write letters home to you. Provides entertainment to help them forget for a while the grim business of war. So how about giving the USO a boost right now? They need money to help our boys. Leave your contribution at local USO headquarters or mail it to the USO, Empire State Building, New York City. And why not make it just a little more than you thought you could afford? Uncle Sam's in the market for all the scrap rubber you can find. So go through the house and pick up old bathing caps and tennis shoes, hot water bottles, or rubber gloves, anything made of rubber, anything you think might be made of rubber. Take it to your nearest garage or filling station, and you'll be paid a cent a pound. Remember, your little scrap of rubber may take the scrap out of the accident. The music for tonight's program was composed and conducted by Leith Stevens. His broadcast was produced under the direction of Crane Wilbur. All the names used in Big Town are fictitious, and any similarity to actual persons and places is purely coincidental.
There's nothing so dismal as a foghorn. Unless it's somebody with... B.O. Stop B.O. Take a daily bath with the new 1942 Lifebuoy. New added ingredient, new vanishing scent, same protective lather. From head to toe, it stops B.O. Lifebuoy. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
That was Adventures in Geneva from Big Town, originally broadcast on June 18th, 1942. And just like that, we wrap up the first hour. Stay tuned because hour number 2 is just around the corner right after this break. Classic Radio Rewind will be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Classic Radio Rewind. I'm Barry Slinker, and moving forward, we have a tale that delves into the darker side of family and fortune, presenting Glossy Finish from Crime Does Not Pay, which aired on December 26, 1949. In this gripping episode, wealthy Uncle David announces he will leave $500,000 to each of his 2 nephews. It's the kind of news that can make anyone's head spin. But as we all know, immense wealth can sometimes unearth the most corrosive elements of human nature. Let's listen into Glossy Finish from Crime Does Not Pay and see where this tale of wealth and woe takes us.
Crime Does Not Pay.
Never mind a crybaby act, Fuller. You're old enough to know what you've been doing.
You've got to give me time, that's all. Just some time.
Signed this IOU, didn't you, for 10 grand?
Look, Toppy, if you'll only have patience, if you'll only wait a little, I'm coming into money in my uncle's will.
How long am I supposed to wait for that?
Only until my uncle dies.
In the interest of good citizenship and law enforcement, we present Crime Does Not Pay. Now, Crime Does Not Pay, starring Martin Gable as John Fuller in Glossy Finish. The crime of murder The last act of desperate violence on the part of an individual has never been confined to one group of people. No social or economic group, no race or people or nation is free from the crime of murder. For instance, the well-ordered household of multimillionaire David Fuller was hardly the place where one would expect murder. It was a smooth-running, apparently happy household. There was David himself, his nephew John, his faithful secretary Charles Dubois, his housekeeper Martha Frank. This was the permanent unit, modest, efficient, quiet. Then one day, David Fuller called his household together and started the train of events which brought about his own death.
Now, John, come in. We've been waiting for you.
I'm sorry, Uncle David. I had your message at the office, but there was the usual traffic jam. Hello, Martha. Hello, Charlie.
No matter. Sit down, John. Sit down.
Thank you. Anything wrong?
Well, no, hardly. Just getting my affairs in order, that's all.
Oh, in other words, Uncle David, you've made a will.
Exactly. Now, Charles here seems to think that what's in that document is nobody's business but my own. However, it's quite simple. The sudden acquisition of comparative wealth may be a shock which can have disastrous results on some very fine people. I want you all prepared to handle money.
Me, Mr. David? Me with money?
The income from $250,000 will be yours, Martha, as long as you outlast me.
Oh, sir.
That's one provision of the boresome legal document whose legal language I refuse to confuse you with. Now, I've made certain provisions for my favorite charities, and then, well, you two young fellows have been the nearest to sons I've ever had. So the residual estate, about $1 million, will be divided equally between you.
What?
After taxes and all, you'll have about $500,000 apiece.
Uncle David.
Oh, really, sir? Don't you think... Well, after all, I'm no blood relation.
You've been closer to me these 10 years than anyone but John, and it's my money. I earned it.
May I say something, Uncle David?
Of course, John.
Just that I don't want Martha or Charlie to think that I feel they're getting something I ought to have. You've given me a home since Dad died, and anything I've ever wanted. All I can say, sir, is that I hope and I trust that it'll be a long time before any of us see that bequest.
Uh-huh. Here she comes, Johnny.
Not bad at all. Who is she, a professional model?
I'll have to tell her that. She'll love it. No, she's a girl I met a couple of months ago, Dorothy Mason.
Months? And you've been holding out on me that long?
I know your fatal attraction, pal.
Thanks, pal. What kind of prints you making, matty or glossy?
Well, the contacts I'm making glossy. You can take the blow-ups out of there now and put them in the fixer.
Right. The ferry plate ready?
It's still on the shelf. Get it, will you?
Sure. Hey, what's that doing there?
Ammonia compound. No dark room complete without it.
What for?
Ever read the label on the ferrocyanide bottle?
No. All I noticed was the skull and crossbones. That's when I decided the glossy finish was for other folks. Me, I'll stick to the matte finishes. I don't like poison.
Well, just in case, ammonia is the antidote for poisoning by potassium ferrocyanide. Formula K3FeCN6.
Charles Dubois, the complete secretary, even to chemistry.
Oh, why not? Majored in it at college. Took up shorthand when I had to earn a living.
That's funny. I took it, too. Chemistry, I mean. But just freshman stuff. Never fooled around with the cyanides. Will you excuse me, Uncle David?
Well, you haven't had your coffee, John.
I know, but I've got a date for 8:30. I can just make it now.
She must be important, Charles, if John's so anxious to be on time for her.
She must be. Anyone I know, Johnny?
No, nobody that either of you knows. Will you pardon me, please?
Yes, of course, John. Run along.
Thank you, sir.
Do you expect to be late?
No, not very.
Excuse me, Mr. David, Mr. John. Will you have coffee in here or in the library?
Library, Martha, please. Mr. Charles and I have a few papers to go over.
Very well, sir. And Mr. John?
Martha, I'm going out. I may be a little late. Now, before you go to bed, Will you leave the chain off the front door for me?
My rheumatism's been bothering me, Mr. John. I'll be going up as soon as the kitchen is in order. Perhaps Mr. Charles...
Oh, I'm going home tonight, John, so the chain will be off after I let myself out.
Oh, well, my young men are going to make a night of it, it seems.
If going straight home to bed is making a night of it, sir.
And my appointment's in the nature of business, Uncle David.
Listen to the Martha. And let's get along with what we have to do, Charles. Maybe I can get you on your way earlier than you expect.
Okay, come in.
Good evening, Mr. Carter.
My friends and the people who owe me money call me Toppy. Maybe because they know I always come out on top. You got the dough?
No. No, I haven't.
All right, then.
What are you doing?
Making a phone call, obviously, to a Mr. David Fuller.
You can't do that, Toppy.
Oh, can't
I'll get the money. Somehow, somewhere, but you can't call my uncle. He'll disinherit me. He thinks gambling is a sucker's racket.
Isn't it? For the suckers who gamble?
Now, please, have a little more patience, Toppy. I came on the minute tonight so that you'd know that I mean to pay.
Never mind the crybaby act, Fuller. You're old enough to know what you've been doing. You signed this IOU, didn't you? For 10 grand?
Look, Toppy, if you'll only have a little patience, if you'll only wait a little, I'm coming into money in my uncle's will.
How long am I supposed to wait for that?
Only until my uncle dies.
Good night, Mr. Fuller.
Good night, Charles. Oh, Charles, my watch seems to have stopped. What time have you?
12:15, sir.
Well, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Charles! Charles, dear!
Dorothy! Dorothy, darling.
I figured your boss and benefactor couldn't keep you all night, so I waited.
I'm sorry, darling. I couldn't help it. For a man who claims he's retired from business, he does more work.
And at the oddest hours. This is the 4th night in 3 weeks that we've had a date, and he's made you work. Are you sure he doesn't know about us?
No one knows, dear, except Johnny.
So you finally told him.
Well, he walked into the dark room the other day while I was making prints of those pictures I took of you.
I see.
By the way, I've got the glossies with me, having the enlargements framed. Do you want to see these?
I want to see you. I'm in love with you. Heaven help me. And I want to be with you.
And I want to be with you for the rest of our lives.
It looks from here as if the rest of our lives is going to be a mighty short period.
Well, I can't leave him now.
I know. I've heard it before. The will again.
$500,000 after taxes. Isn't that worth waiting for?
I'd like to spend a little of it while we're young enough to enjoy it.
I know, darling, I know. Maybe... You never know with anyone as old as he is. Maybe it'll be all over sooner than you think.
Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, it's 9 o'clock. Mr. Fuller. Are you up, Mr. Fuller? Funny. He's always up by this time. Funny. Smells almost like almond paste in here. Mr. Fuller. Oh, no. Mr. Fuller. Oh, no!
Martha! What's wrong, Martha? Martha, stop that. Martha! Uncle David.
He's dead. He's dead in his bed. My poor Mr. David.
Martha, stop it. Did you close the windows?
Windows? No, I never touched anything.
And Martha, that long-necked laboratory bottle on the night table. Have you ever seen that bottle before?
grief and uproar in the Fuller house after Martha, the housekeeper, discovered the body of David Fuller. The presence of the long-necked glass laboratory bottle or flask on the night table, the tightly closed windows, the faint but definite smell of almonds in the air, all pointed to very mysterious happenings in David's room. John immediately called the police. Before a half hour had passed, the room and the house were overrun with uniformed policemen, technical experts, detectives, and the staff of the medical examiner.
Well, Doc, what does it look like?
It looks like what it is. Cyanide poisoning.
Suicide?
Murder.
I haven't seen any food around.
Didn't get it in food. You're looking at the murder weapon.
That glass bottle? I don't get it.
You smell the bitter almonds odor?
Until Johnson opened the window, yes.
Hydrocyanic acid. Hydrogen cyanide gas.
Same thing they use in the gas chambers out west?
That's right.
Well, how could anybody get a hold of that?
Well, that's your job, Lieutenant. You're the man in charge of homicide around here.
Hey, Lieutenant, can I bother you a minute?
What's on your mind, Johnson?
Something funny on the windowsill.
What?
Flies. 10 flies. Counted them.
Alive or dead?
Well, dead, of course. Enough gas to kill a man would kill all the insects, too.
Yeah, they're dead.
Okay, so the flies are dead. So what? Doc, how long ago did the old man die?
Rough estimate, at least 4 hours, no more than 10.
They found the body just before 9 o'clock. Johnson, get me that housekeeper.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Frank, in here, please.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Frank, perhaps you can help us.
Well, I'll try, sir.
Is there any poison kept around the house?
Oh, no, sir. Only the usual roach paste and things like that.
Doc?
Arsenic base. No, no good.
Is there any other kind of chemical around here that you know about?
Well, do they use chemicals in photography, sir?
Do they use chemicals?
Easy, Johnson.
Oh, yes, sir.
Miss Frank, will you show us the dark room, please? The place where the work in photography is done.
Quite a layout, Lieutenant. Look at that enlarger.
Yeah, plenty of money spent on this.
But plenty, Lieutenant.
The young men had this as a hobby, I guess, sir.
The nephew and the secretary?
Yes, sir.
Say, look here, Lieutenant.
What's that? Looks like a hunk of tin to me.
It's a fairy plate, sir.
What's it used for?
Well, you know those shiny prints you get when you have pictures developed?
Go on.
They make them shiny by rolling them out and drying them on this after they've been in a solution of iron salts. Iron ferrous. Fairy plate.
How do you know so much about all this?
I used to play around with photography myself when I was a kid.
You said iron salts, Johnson?
Yes, Doc. There ought to be a bottle of it around somewhere.
Yeah, nothing here. What do you buy for this work?
Well, there's lots of trade names. The stuff is potassium ferrous cyanide, though.
That does it. K3FeCN6.
Explain yourself, Doc.
Simple enough. Although whoever did it would have to know something about chemistry.
Who knew about chemistry around here, Miss Frank?
Well, sir,
Say it. Which one of the young men?
Both, sir. They both took chemistry in college.
Better and better. Go on, Doc. How was it done?
Well, all he had to do was to have some hydrochloric acid in that flask upstairs, you see. He sneaks into the room while the old man's sleeping, puts the flask on the table, drops in some of this ferricyanide. The hydrogen from the acid combines with the cyanide. Boom. That's all. Death from hydrogen cyanide poisoning.
You're sure of this, Doc?
Sure as I can be before we analyze what's in that flask. But I'll bet roughly 50 to 1 on it.
Well, we know how, but why?
He was pretty rich. It was in his will.
You know anything about that will, Mrs. Frank?
I'm in it, sir. A trust fund.
And the boys? Well, Mrs. Frank?
They both... He told us once. They both get a lot of money, sir.
Well. All right, Doc. Get going on your analysis. Johnson, get those 2 young gentlemen ready for me. I'll take them on one at a time.
Yeah, Lieutenant.
Well, what's bothering you? 2 ready-made suspects, and you're worried?
It's those flies, Lieutenant. They've got to fit in somewhere. I'll be doggone if I can figure where.
You are Mr. Fuller's nephew?
Yes, Lieutenant. I called you when the housekeeper found him.
Yes, I know. Mr. Fuller, I understand you have some knowledge of chemistry and photography.
Well, photography, quite a little. As for chemistry, I had about a year of it in college.
How long ago was that?
Longer than I care to think.
Most of us feel that way after a while. Mr. Fuller, what time did you come home last night?
About 1 or 1:30 this morning.
Was that late for you?
Some. I asked Martha to leave the chain off the door. Uncle David always insisted on chains and bolts at night.
That's an odd object you're tossing in your hand.
Oh, this is a chip from a gambling den. One of my friends had it. Never saw one quite like it before.
May I see it?
Certainly.
Monogrammed. Mr. Fuller, did you put the chain on the door when you came home last night?
To be frank, I don't think I did.
I see. Then, in that case, anyone with a key to the front door might have had access to this house even after you came home.
Well, surely, Lieutenant, you don't think that Charles Dubo had anything to do with...
Your uncle's death? I'm not thinking anything at the moment, Mr. Fuller. I'm merely gathering the facts and sorting the truth from the window dressing. So your story, Mr. Dubo, is that you called goodnight to Mr. Fuller. He answered you when you left this house about 12:15 and did not come back.
Exactly, Lieutenant.
Do you have any corroborating evidence?
Do you mean an alibi?
Yes. I'm afraid you'll have to find an alibi, Mr. Dubo. You had motive, opportunity, and an excellent knowledge of chemistry by your own admission.
All right, Lieutenant. My alibi is Dorothy Mason. She lives at 419 Sutter Street. Dorothy will tell you the truth.
Yes, I waited for him, Lieutenant. I was angry. Another broken date. I wanted to have it out with him.
And when did you separate?
It was late.
How late? I'm sorry, Miss Mason. I must have the answer.
It was after sunrise.
I see. I doubt if it will be necessary for this to go any farther than me, Miss Mason.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
One more question, Miss Mason. Has Mr. Dubo ever made any statement to you about his employer, about the will, about any possible desire to see Mr. Fuller dead?
Yes. Last night, when I was quarreling with him, he did say Mr. Fuller might die soon.
All right, Toppy, this is one of your unique chips, isn't it?
So what?
I found it in the hand of John Fuller.
That jerk owes me plenty. I gave the sucker a break. He asked me to wait until his uncle died. Okay, I figured. Good enough. 10 grand in live money is worth more than taking care of a fathead like Johnny Fuller.
So, what have we got? The poison available. Both of them knew about it. Dubo, maybe more than Fuller. Nobody heard the old man say goodnight to the secretary except Dubo himself. He could have gone back if the girl is covering for him.
I know, Lieutenant. But you said yourself you think she's telling the truth.
Watch her driving. Sure, she's telling the truth. But the old boy could have been dead when Dubo left the house.
Well, my candidate's the nephew.
Why? Any more than the secretary?
Well, he knew the same stuff as Dubo. And he was in the house all night. At least the housekeeper says so.
You heard her yourself, up all night with rheumatism. She heard every sound in the house. She says the nephew never left his room.
Yeah, sure. Maybe he wore woolen socks. No noise.
Only one thing we left out, Johnson, the time. It had to be done between 11 at night and 5 in the morning.
Well, that's how we've been figuring. But there's something else we left out.
What, for instance?
The flies. 10 dead flies on the windowsill.
You and those flies, Johnson, for the love of... Hey, wait a minute.
Think you got some?
I think I've got the killer. Turn back, Johnson. Use a siren. We're heading for the residence of the late David Fuller. Come in.
Your assistant told me you were in here, Lieutenant. Glad to see you.
And vice versa, Mr. Fuller. Shut the door, Johnson. And bring that book over here.
Right, Lieutenant.
May I know what's going on?
Of course. That's why we asked you here. Mr. Fuller, are you familiar with this book?
The World Almanac? Yes, I know it. I haven't used one in years.
Perhaps you should have. No matter now. Detective Johnson here was plagued with an idea. The almanac helped him out.
You're talking in riddles, Lieutenant.
You explain it to him, Johnson.
Be glad to. It was the flies, Mr. Fuller. Those dead flies in the windowsill of your uncle's room.
Those again? We had quite a few chuckles over your flies, Detective.
Yes. Well, Mr. Fuller, it's funny about flies. They sleep at night.
Yes, so they do. On walls and ceilings, don't they?
Glad you noticed that.
But these flies were on the windowsill.
Something drew them to the windowsill.
And that's where the almanac came in. You see here on this page, Mr. Fuller.
Table of sunrise and sunset for the month of June.
And the date of your uncle's murder was June 19th. And the sun rose at 4:22 a.m. that day, which means it was light as early as 4. Light enough, Mr. Fuller, for the flies to be awakened and to be drawn toward the window and be caught there by the poison gas which kills your uncle.
What's all this to do with me?
You were in this house at that time.
The housekeeper dozed off.
But the train, anybody could have come in.
Meaning Charles Dubois?
Well, certainly, or anybody. Martha herself, she's in the will, too.
It won't do, Fuller. We know where Dubois was past sunrise. Mrs. Frank doesn't know one chemical from another. And you were in trouble with Toppy Carter to the tune of $10,000.
You can't make it stick. You'll never make it stick.
We think we will, Fuller.
We think we'll find that bottle of ferrocyanide somewhere in your room.
You think I'd be dumb enough to leave it around? All right. You win. But I came close, didn't I? As close as anyone could and not get away with it. Like coming close to winning at Toppy's and then dropping every dollar. Uncle David would rather enjoy this, I imagine. Having his death avenged by a few dead flies.
Crime does not pay. Now, here in person is Martin Gable.
I think that in attempting to evaluate John Fuller's crime, we need to go far deeper than the surface motivation of the money he would have inherited if he'd not tried to hurry the inevitable. You see, there are thousands of potential John Fullers all over our country. Young people who are caught by the thrill of gambling, who don't care where their thrill-seeking habit may lead them, who eventually, and one way or another, will have to pay their debts. It follows, then, that to protect these people from themselves, the root of the matter, organized gambling, must be destroyed. That job rests with us, you and I. We alone can prove that gambling does not pay and crime does not pay.
Thank you, Martin Gable. Crime Does Not Pay is written by Ira Marion and directed by Marks B. Loeb, with music composed and conducted by John Gart. Technical advisor is Burton B. Turkis. The events, characters, and names used in the story you've just heard are fictitious. Any similarity is purely coincidental.
You've just heard Glossy Finish from Crime Does Not Pay, dating back to December 26, 1949. It's fascinating and a bit unsettling to observe how quickly fortune can alter the dynamics between people. Episodes like this prompt us to reflect on our own values and the true cost of letting greed take the wheel. Now, after such heavy themes, it's time to lighten the mood with some classic humor. Our final feature today is from the Fibber McGee and Molly show titled Fibber Makes Chili Sauce, originally aired on November 9th, 1943. When Fibber finds himself out of his favorite chili sauce, he decides that the best solution is to make his own. Simple enough, right? Well, in true Fibber fashion, what follows is a series of hilarious misadventures that only he could stumble into. So sit back, relax, and let's enjoy the comedic escapades in Fibber Makes Chili Sauce.
The Johnson Wax Program with Fibber McGee and Molly. The makers of Johnson's Wax, Johnson's Carnew, and Johnson's Self-Polishing Glow Coat present Fibber McGee and Molly, written by Don Quinn, with music by the Kingsmen and Billy Mills Orchestra. I'd like to tell you about another interesting use for wax which has been brought about by the war. You ladies who are saving tin cans know there's been an acute shortage of tin, most of which comes from the Malay Peninsula. Because of this shortage, many products that used to be packed in tin containers are now packed in glass or paper. To save further, can manufacturers are now using only 1/3 as much tin coating as before the war. But when these new packages are shipped overseas, they need still further protection against moisture and corrosion. And that's where wax comes in. To help solve this problem, the makers of Johnson's Wax have developed special wax coatings for these metal containers to help prevent spoilage of vital canned foods. Some canners are already using these Johnson's Wax coatings, both for overseas and domestic packages. They're easy to apply by dipping or spraying. They're even made in olive drab color so that discarded cans won't reflect light. Any food canners interested may write for full details to S.C. Johnson & Son, Racine, Wisconsin, or Brantford, Canada. Well, it's a strange paradox that the squire of 79 Wistful Vista is a light eater and a heavy eater. The answer, of course, is that he's light when he sits down and heavy when he gets up. And here at the breakfast table, meet Fibber McGee and Molly.
Fibber McGee, strong and able, get your elbows off that table.
Oh. Excuse me. Boy, was I hungry. These fall mornings sure put an edge on a guy's appetite.
Say, listen, your appetite has always had an edge that would slice granite. Are you through with the morning paper?
Yeah, take it. It's disgusting.
What's disgusting about it? And take your spoon out that cup.
This lend-lease. Sending all the food out of the country. Burns me up. Hey, you got any more of that homemade jelly?
Plenty. I'll get some in a minute. But what about Lend-Lease now?
It's ridiculous, that's what about it. Makes my blood stand on end. Us 100% Americans skimping along on scraps of food and all that stuff being shipped away. Make me another piece of toast, will you? Yes, sir. By George, it's shameful how
for
these...
goodness sakes, McGee, don't talk silly.
Huh?
I read that article on Lend-Lease myself. It said our shipments this year will be only 10% of our total food production. And then only if the basic needs of our armed forces and our civilian requirements permit it. You'll have to admit 10% isn't so much. That's only one donut out of a dozen.
If your idea 10% is one donut out of a dozen, baby, you better find another bakery. You've been getting gypped. They probably blow up the cream puffs with a bicycle pump.
I was merely trying to point out, my bulging boyfriend, that nobody, particularly you, will suffer any malnutrition from the food we send our allies.
Well, doggone it, it's the principle of the thing. All that food leaving the country and... Hey, is there any more of that country sausage?
No. And it will probably be months before we get any more.
There, you see, no country sausage. Here we are being deprived of our food at home when... Excuse me.
What are you doing?
Loosening my belt. I ate too much. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Here we are being deprived of our food.
You didn't finish your egg, dearie.
Oh.
Mustn't be wasteful, you know.
No, I can't finish it. Ran out of chili sauce. Get another bottle, will you?
That was the last bottle.
Our last bottle of chili sauce?
It was.
Where did it all go to?
Well, you had most of it at midnight last night with your bacon and tomato and tuna fish and lettuce and chopped olive and onion sandwich. Don't you remember?
Yeah, but doggone it, Molly, you know how I love chili sauce. Why don't you keep a bottle around for emergencies?
I do, and that's the bottle you ate.
Oh.
And just so you'll have a clear understanding of the issue, chili sauce is now, I think, 18 blue points a bottle.
18 blue points. We got to trade them oysters for it now?
No, 18 blue ration points.
Oh. Well, why don't you make some chili sauce? Get some tomatoes and chili or whatever you need and make some.
Why don't you make some?
Who, me? Why. Well, now I'll just do that little thing, Mrs. McGee. Now, let me see. Where did I see a recipe for chili sauce?
Oh, quit it, McGee. I was just kidding.
Well, I'm not kidding. I'm calling your bluff, baby. I'm going to make some chili sauce.
But, sweetheart...
Don't get mushy with me. You can't switch me off by having your long eyelashes at me this time. How many tomatoes we got?
About a dozen.
Well, that ain't enough. Get some more. Get about a gross. How many is that, 4 dozen?
That's 12 dozen.
Perfect. That ought to make several bottles of chili sauce.
Now, look, McGee, you don't know anything about how to make...
Careful there. Is the American Army the best-fed army in the world? It is. And who cooks for them? Women? No, men. Do you remember that I was a mess sergeant in the last war?
No. Were you really a mess sergeant?
Yes, and without the comma. Now, look, before you go upstairs, get out a flock of canning jars and tops for 'em, see? And order a thundering herd of tomatoes. I got work to do.
Well, if you hadn't been so greedy and eaten all the tomatoes out of our victory garden, standing out there all summer with a salt shaker, I never saw anything.
Ah, dear, can you beat that? Guy just gets busy with his canning, and look what happens. Come in.
Oh, good morning, Dr. Gamble.
Hello, Mrs. McGee. Hello, McGee.
Hi, Doc. Take a chair. I like to see a declining physician in a reclining position.
How long have you been married, Mrs. McGee?
25 years, Doctor. Why?
25 years. A quarter of a century of putting up with such foul whimsy as that. You're a wonderful woman.
Trouble with you is, Doc, you haven't got any sense of humor. You wouldn't know a joke if it bit you in the leg.
If one of your jokes ever bit me, McGee, I'd be too busy cauterizing it to laugh.
Oh, I tell you, Dr. McGee has some wonderful jokes. You know, from when he used to be in vaudeville.
Yeah, you betcha. Me and my partner, a guy by the name of Fred Nittany from Starved Rock, Illinois. We had some dynamite material. Opened in one, closed in the alley. Yes, we had some good stuff. Like when I'd come on stage playing a harmonica without making any noise, and Fred would say, "What are you playing?" And I'd say, "Silent Night." Then we'd both bust into a buck and wing waving our little American flags. Ah, boy, the audience used to kill themselves at us.
I can understand it. The urge would be almost irresistible.
Say, McGee, tell Dr. Gamble the one about when you'd say, is that clock right up there? And then Mr. Nittany would say, yes, right up there. Tell him that one.
Yes. Yes, do.
Oh, sarcastic, eh? I don't know why I even talk to you, Doc. I shudder to think I ever let a dumb bunny like you spray my throat.
Oh, McGee.
You wouldn't know the difference between argyrol and arsenic.
In your case, I wouldn't be fussy.
Now, please, Doctor.
Doctor, my clavicle. Why, you questionable quinine quarterback. You couldn't set a broken broom handle. You couldn't reduce the fever in a saucer of coffee with a cold north wind. You couldn't find the bone in a lamb chop.
Oh, why, you insulting little ingrate. When I think of the times I've got out of bed to come over here and treat you for a bad case of gluttony, I have a good notion to kick a couple of incisors down your noisy, overgrown trachea.
Oh, yeah? Well, if any incisors go down my trach... What's a trachea?
A windpipe. A windpipe, with you the most active organ in the body. If the Curtis Wright Company ever hires you, they can burn down their wind tunnel and still test clipper ships.
Why,
you are the gabbiest, loudest, shallowest specimen of the so-called human race that's ever been my ill fortune to come in contact with. And the only reason I came over here was to see if you want to go duck hunting tomorrow morning.
Sure. What time?
6:30. I'll call for you. So long, Mrs. McGee.
Good day, Doctor.
So long, kid.
Billy Mills and the orchestra play the Surrey with the Fringe on top.
Peeled medium onions. What's a medium onion? 6 seeded green peppers, 8 pounds ripe skinned tomatoes, 1.5 C graduated sugar, 1.5 C. What do they mean, C? Oh, carton. 1.5 cartons of sugar, 4 3-inch sticks of cinnamon, salt, vinegar, cloves. Hey, Molly, where's the hatchet?
In the basement. What do you need the hatchet for?
I gotta chop some onions. Hey, let's trade at some other grocery.
Why?
Well, these people don't cooperate, that's why. The recipe for this chili sauce calls for some ripe skinned tomatoes, and they wouldn't send me any skinned tomatoes. Said I'd have to skin them myself. Independent as a hog on ice.
Don't be ridiculous, dearie. No grocery sells skinned tomatoes.
Oh, what kind of service is that? Next time we order butter, they'll likely send us some milk and tell us to churn it ourselves. By George, I don't
McGee,
think...
what's all this stuff on the shelf here?
Where? Oh, those. Well, that's some more stuff that grocery gypped me on. Green peppers. After I peeled the skins off, there was nothing left of them.
What?
Give me the phone. I'll give that grocery a piece of my mind.
But,
I don't
McGee,
see...
a green pepper isn't supposed
Hello, operator. Give me Jimmy Sales Grocery on the Mert. Is that you, Mert?
Oh, dear.
How's every little thing, Mert? It is, eh? What's a Mert? Oh, Mert. You don't tell me.
What is it, dearie?
I don't know. She don't tell me. What's a Mert? Okay, I'll call later. Grocery phone is busy. Hey, take a sniff of that stuff I mixed up there. Don't that smell good?
Shall I peel the onions?
No, thanks. But you can stand in front of me while I do it if you want to.
Why should I stand in front of you?
Because when I peel onions, I always cry. And what's marriage for if you can't cry on each other's shoulders?
Don't be silly. The way to peel onions without discomfort is to peel them underwater, you know.
There's too many of them. I couldn't hold my breath that long. No, I'll just pick some here and get them.
Hello, Molly. Hello, pal. What's cooking?
McGee is.
What?
I am, Junior. I'm whipping up a batch of chili sauce. You got any rude comment to make about it?
No, I haven't. And who are you making the chili sauce for? You've got enough tomatoes there for Chiang Kai-shek and the Chinese army.
Well, his ideas of proportions are a little haywire, Mr. Wilcox. He'd probably make pickled peaches with 1 pickle and 50 peaches.
Oh, yeah? Well, I guess I know what I'm doing, Harpo. I just love chili sauce, and if the government is going to be nasty about it and charge 18 points a bottle, I'll fool them, that's all. They ain't going to lend-lease me out of my chili sauce.
You seem to have the wrong idea of lend-lease, pal.
Yes, explain it to him, Mr. Wilcox.
No, I can't cover the whole subject, Molly. Lend-lease is simply the way we exchange goods and services with our lives.
We don't give everything away, you know.
Oh, no.
No. Why, in 1943, American forces in Australia and New Zealand received, on a reciprocal Lend-Lease basis, nearly as much beef as was sent from the United States to all countries receiving Lend-Lease foodstuff.
You see, McGee?
Well, what are we sending all the chili sauce to Australia for? Answer me that.
No, we're not. But don't forget, our Army and Navy and Marines and Air Force are a healthy bunch of guys. They each eat about 2 pounds of food more a day than they did when they were civilians.
Well, does that mean I got to eat 2 pounds a day less a day?
Well, I can't think of anybody who could stand it better, dearie.
Well, it doesn't mean that at all, pal. There's still plenty of grub for everybody, though we may be a little short of certain items. Say, by the way, do you eat chili sauce 3 times a day?
Why, he eats chili sauce on everything, Mr. Wilcox.
I never know such a thing. I don't eat chili sauce on...
You see? He can't think of anything he doesn't eat it on.
Oatmeal?
Oatmeal? Did you ever eat oatmeal with chili sauce? Why, it's wonderful. Why, the first time I ever tried
Now,
that...
easy, McGee. Mr. Wilcox is turning pale there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought everybody liked that. So you claim they ain't sending all the chili sauce overseas, eh, Wilcox?
Of course they're not. Anyway, food is merely a part of the Lend-Lease plan. They send a lot...
Hey, I got an idea. I'll start my own Lend-Lease plan. Look, Junior, why don't you have Racine send England a few cases of Johnson's wax and let them send me some chili sauce?
Why?
Huh?
That's silly, McGee. There is a Johnson's wax plant in England already.
Certainly. Johnson's wax is as familiar to smart British housewives as it is to Americans. It's particularly valuable in the English climate because it seals surfaces against dampness as well as dust.
Still, Mr. Churchill might help you out on his next trip, McGee. You know, he has nothing to do but smoke cigars, win a war, and bring you chili sauce. I think you peeled enough of those onions.
Huh? Oh, you think so?
Yeah, and look, don't waste any of that stuff, Fibber. You know the 4 points of the Food for Freedom campaign. Grow what you can, conserve all you can, share what you can.
Can what you can?
She's joshing you.
Yes, Molly, even that. And last but not least, play fair with the rationing system. Give everybody a square share.
Look, Junior, how come you're so well informed on this food business?
Well, I'll tell you. My wife sat me in a chair last night and talked to me for 3 hours about it. And just because I went out and spent all of our month's meat points for a couple of wonderful steaks. A word to the wise, pal. So long now. Get this.
What's he mean, that stuff, a word to the wise? Tomatoes don't take any ration points, do they?
No, I think what he meant was let the woman of the house handle the food problem.
Oh.
Now, would you like to go to the Elks Club and let me take over the chili sauce department?
No, sir. I'm going to see this thing through. It's practically all mixed now, and... don't that smell good?
Not bad at all, but McGee, what are you doing with that pillowcase?
That's to put the spices in, to cook them. The recipe says put spices in cheesecloth bag while the mixture cooks. But I couldn't do that because cheese takes more points than chili sauce.
But you can't use one of my good pillow slips. I'll get you a little bag you can use. 70 days if you'd only ask for what you want.
Hello, Mrs. McGee. Hello, Mr. McGee.
Hi, Al.
Hello, Alice.
My goodness, Mr. McGee, what are you doing?
I'm making up some chili sauce, Alice. Don't it smell good?
Oh, why, you great, big, talented man, you.
Oh, sure.
Jeepers, I hope I get a man that's a good cook. Or at least I hope I get a man who can cook. Or at least I hope I get a man.
I don't think you'll have any trouble, Alice. There's a list of telephone calls on the hall table as long as your arm.
Oh, thank you ever so much, my dear. I'm sorry if the boys have been disturbing you, because I've told them never to call me here except in an emergency. But you know how boys are. They think if they whistle at a person and she sort of smiles, they think it's an emergency. And they always call up and want to know if a person can go to a movie or something.
Yeah, I imagine you see a lot of good movies that way.
I don't guess you're interested in any one boy, though, are you, Alice?
No, Mrs. McGee, though I was for a while in Archibald.
Archibald?
Mm-hmm. He's the son of the owner of the airplane plant, and, my dear, he's just rolling in it. Though he is a weird kind of a drip. And all the girls and the fellows started kidding me about how I was being nice to Archibald just because his father owned the plant. And it got to bothering me, and I finally asked myself, was I? And I was. So I told Archibald to go bake a cake.
Yeah, what'd he say?
He said he was very upset.
And what did you say?
I said, in that case, go bake an upside-down cake.
I don't think we need worry about Alice McGee. She seems to be able to handle almost any situation.
Yeah, the way she tosses the mails around, she ought to get a job in the post office over Christmas.
Oh, Mr. McGee, you just say that. Well, I guess I better get to bed now, and I hope your applesauce turns out all right.
It's chilly.
Well, put it on the stove, foolish. Bye-bye now.
The King's Men singing Sourwood Mountain.
I've got a gal in the Sourwood Mountains. Hold it down, fiddle-I-day. She won't come and I won't call her. Hold it down, fiddle-I-day. Roosters are crowing in the Sourwood Mountains. Hold it down, fiddle-I-day. So many pretty gals I can't count 'em. Hold it down, fiddle-I-day. Big dogs bark and the little ones will bite you. Hold it down, fiddle-I-day. Big girls court and the little ones fight you. Hold it down, fiddle-I-day. My true love lives up in Ledger. Hold it down, fiddle-I-day. She won't come and I won't fetch her. Hold it down, fiddle-I-day. My true love lives over the river. Hold down, if it'll come to some of them days. A few more jumps and I'll be with her. Hold down, if it'll come to some of them days. I've got a gal at the head of the holler. Hold down, if it'll come to some of them days. She won't come and I won't follow her. Hold down, if it'll come to some of them days. I got a gal to the other side of the pasture. Hold yum, diddly day. She won't come and I won't ask her. Hold yum, diddly day. I just wrote her a lovesick letter. Hold yum, diddly day. If she wants to read her, she will have to come and get her. Hold yum, diddly day. Old man, I want your daughter. She must bake and carry me water. Oh, man, I want your daughter. Down, diddle, down, diddle, down, diddle, day. She must bake and carry me water. Oh, diddle, high, diddle, hey, diddle, one of these
Does that smell good? Don't it smell good, Molly?
Haven't you cooked it about enough, dearie? I'd like to get lunch on that stove unless you prefer your macaroni cooked over an open fire in the backyard.
Oh, I won't be very long now, 5 or 10 minutes, then I put it in the jars.
Did you sterilize the jars?
Sure I did, inside and out with rubbing alcohol. Hey, hand me another tomato.
Why do you keep adding tomatoes?
Well, because I keep forgetting how much salt and pepper and vinegar and stuff I put in, so to balance it up, every time I put in anything, I toss in another tomato. Hey, you wanna finish this job, Molly?
No. No thanks, dearie. You're the Oscar of this Waldorf.
Ah, come on. The work's all done. Gee whiz, I don't know.
Oh, hello there, Uncle Dennis.
Hello, Molly, darling. And Fibber, what would you be doing now, lad?
I'm mixing up a batch of chili sauce, Unc.
Looks good. But then so did the German army at first.
Well, now, why didn't you tell me you wanted some homemade chili sauce, lad?
Huh?
I'd have been glad to make you some, always providing, heaven forbid, that I haven't lost the recipe for it, that my Aunt Margaret, may she look down and see what condition my shoes are in and send me good luck, gave me.
I never knew you could cook, Unc.
Never knew I could cook. And who was it put all the clam bakes for the West Side Social, Athletic, and whatever became of Al Smith for President Club? And who was it that always barbecued the spare ribs for the annual picnic of the firemen and police, which the war may at soon end put a stop to, and none too soon?
Did you do all that cooking, Uncle Dennis?
Well, no, but I can lay my hands on the man who did, and he'll teach me all he knows, or I'll have the eyes out of his head with my thumb. May no such violence be necessary.
Well, it won't be necessary now, Unc. All I wanted was plenty of chili sauce, and I'm doing all right with that. I hope.
It reminds me of when I was a chef at a very uptown hotel. Peace be to its ashes as it burned down recently, though I didn't keep the job very long because of a slight misunderstanding.
Oh, what was the misunderstanding, Uncle Dennis?
Oh, there was one waiter, may his tires wear to shreds. Well, he was always for giving me trouble. One day I look out from the door from the kitchen, and there he is at the table of our wealthiest patron now, setting fire to the pancakes. I rushed out, threw the waiter out by the seat of his pants, dashed a pail of water on the table. They told me they were creepy Suzettes and they were supposed to be lit. I went out and threw the waiter back in, took off my coat, and went to a movie starring Bessie Barriscale and enjoyed it very much.
Look, I hate to interrupt these little reminiscences of your checkered career, Unc, but you and Molly better get out of the way. This chili sauce is ready to put in the jars.
Have you got the jars heated, McGee?
Oh, my gosh, no, I forgot that. Hey, you do it, will you, Molly? Go on, while I step outside for a breath of fresh air.
Well, go right ahead, lad. Go ahead. It's in the good hands of Dennis Driscoll as is, and Molly Driscoll as was. Bad cess to the day she changed the name.
What was that, Unc?
Never mind, McGee. You go get some fresh air.
Okay.
Go on.
Boy, did I talk myself into a mess this time. That stuff is going to taste like rubber hose a la mode. Why can't I keep my big fat mouth shut? Why wasn't such a doggone
Hi,
wit?
mister.
Oh, hello there, little girl.
What's the matter, mister? What's the matter with you,
Oh, you wouldn't understand, sis. Skip it.
Come on, mister.
No.
After all, what is a woman for if not to share the burdens of the man she loves? And don't just sit there with your head in your hands, mister. Look into my eyes.
Go away, sis. Forget you ever knew me. I'm just a big palooka from Peoria, and that's all I'll ever be. Go on now. Go away. I don't feel good.
No, don't say that. It is a woman's place to stand shoulder to shoulder with a man when he's in trouble. And if you stay sitting down, mister, I can stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Just dandy, I betcha. Come on, mister. What's the matter?
I'm a stupid off. That's what's the matter. Now, look, sis, I popped off about how I was going to make some wonderful chili sauce. So what does I do in my brilliant way? I lose the recipe. I forget how much of anything I put in and loused it all up. I've wasted enough food mixing up that batch of fly spray to ruin the National Food Program for 10 years. I'm practically a saboteur. I ought to be stood up against a
now,
wall.
Mr. Jiminy, it can't be that bad, I bet you.
Oh, well, sure.
You're a wonderful man, Mr. McGee. And you've been a good kid. And when I grow up, I want to marry a man just like you. Maybe not so gabby, maybe. How'd your chili sauce taste, Mr. McGee?
I don't know. I didn't dare wait and see. Now I'm scared to go back. I've made such a big mouthful of myself.
McGee, where are you? McGee, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, we tried your chili sauce, lad, and it's marvelous.
McGee, it's really wonderful. And you knew it was, you rascal.
Huh?
Oh, you sneaked out here so we'd taste it.
It was pretty good, huh?
Sure.
It's the sauce of the century, lad.
Why, it's delicious. I take back everything I said.
Oh, forget it. Well, when I tell you I know how to do something, I know what I'm talking about. Yes, sir. Come on, let's finish canning it. And we'll save the prettiest one for the state fair. The McGee chili sauce has never lost a blue ribbon yet. Yes, sir. By George, when I start out to do something.
Oh, brother.
When a circus bills itself as the greatest show on earth, we're not too disturbed by its use of the superlative. Still, we don't like slogans that are always saying the world's best and the world's biggest. That's what troubles me right now, because it just happens that Johnson's Glow Coat is the world's most popular floor polish. Will you forgive me if I say it just this once? The fact is, you probably use Glow Coat on your own linoleum floors for excellent reasons. Not just because it keeps those floors sparkling and beautiful, not merely because it saves you hours of work, needs no rubbing or buffing, and not only because it makes your linoleum last 6 to 10 times longer. Not for just one of these reasons, but for a combination of all three is Glow Coat the most popular floor polish. Linoleum floors the world over are protected, beautified, and made to last longer by the regular use of Johnson's self-polishing Glow Coat.
Ladies and gentlemen, carelessness with food supplies doesn't usually turn out as well as it did with McGee tonight. Food, you know, is an important war material. and a lot depends on how we use it. Now, if we waste food and fail to use it for what it is, a weapon, we might seriously alter the course of the war and delay the day of victory.
If we all make up our minds to conserve food in every way, eat the right things, use plentiful foods instead of scrambling for the scarce ones, and observe rationing and price rulings, we'll do all right. So lick that platter clean, babe. Lick that platter clean.
You know, we'll never get to first base if we don't start from the home plate.
Good night.
Good night, all.
This is Harlow Wilcox speaking for the makers of Johnson Wax products for home and industry, inviting you all to join us again next Tuesday night. Good night. This program came to you from Hollywood. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Chicago WMAQ.
That was Fibber Makes Chili Sauce from the Fibber McGee and Molly Show, straight from November 9th, 1943. I'll return with final thoughts right after this. Welcome back to Classic Radio Rewind, a programming note for upcoming Valentine's Day. Coming in February is Old Time Radio USA's Double Valentine's Marathon. On February 13th, Old Time Radio USA presents its Pre-Valentine's Day Couples Marathon. Classic radio episodes from famous radio couples such as Burns and Allen, Fibber McGee and Molly, Mr. and Mrs. North, and many others. This marathon will lead us to our Valentine's Day Jack Benny Marathon. Celebrate Jack's 39th birthday with classic episodes from the Jack Benny program. This is all coming up next month, so stay tuned. As we wrap up today's episode of Classic Radio Rewind, I hope you've enjoyed this diverse journey through some of radio's most captivating stories. From the profound depths of justice and morality to the lighthearted joys of everyday mishaps, these tales offer a window into the universal experiences that connect us all. But before we part ways, here's something to ponder. Isn't it incredible how these stories, despite being decades old, still resonate with us today? They remind us that while times may change, the core of human experience, our hopes, fears, joys, and dilemmas, remains remarkably constant. Thank you for joining me on this nostalgic adventure. If these stories moved you, sparked a thought, or even just made you chuckle, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to share your reflections or pass these episodes along to friends who might appreciate a trip down memory lane. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll continue to explore the rich tapestry of classic radio. Until then, keep the spirit of these timeless tales alive in your hearts and never stop celebrating the power of the theater of the mind. And until next time, for Classic Radio Rewind and the WOTR Radio Network, this is Barry Slinker saying goodbye for now.
Classic Radio Rewind is a production of the WOTR Radio Network. For more Classic Radio Rewind, and to listen to any of the WOTR Radio Network stations, go to www.wotrradionetwork.com.